Who were your influences back then? Like when you were, when you believed that you were starting to become good at what you were doing, when you became Joey Gold.
Well, there has to be a little bit of a segue there, though. I mean, I was in a crew called One Crew in Arizona, and I still count a couple of those people as real influences, but not ones that really show through in what I started doing towards the end. As a b-boy, what I found, and I found the same thing in graffiti for myself, is that I got into things because I was interested in something, and that what I ended up doing was getting caught up in the current of popular culture and what people are doing, what it takes to be good and respected, and found myself at some point a couple of years later in a place where it's like, here I was as a b-boy trying to do the kind of moves that basically I was never really drawn to in the first place. I was actually drawn to like footwork and top rocking and some of the freezes, like some of the Beat Street stuff was really the stuff I was interested in.
Yeah.
And I liked when guys did windmills and swipes and that kind of stuff, but I always originally tended to like the footwork and the kind of character that people did. And 2 years later here I found myself, trying to do flares and 90s and was not good. I wasn't getting any better. I was really stuck. And I kind of just in a moment of reflection thought, man, this is like, how did I get here? And the same thing with graffiti, I just got caught up in what everybody was doing and trying to like take them out on their terms, be better than them at what they were good at.
Yeah.
And basically I wasn't. I wasn't very good at it. Maybe I don't have a natural gift in that way, I don't know. But so what I did is I just readdressed everything and I tried to go back. Those guys that I was influenced by in One Crew, mainly guys like Anthony or The, he went by The One, and Albert. Those two guys in particular were real influences on me. And then other people peripherally in Arizona, had their little moment where I was kind of interested in them. But when I made the shift, what happened was I basically started really looking at myself and saying, God, I am just garbage, I'm not good. And in breaking, and this is how it was for me, okay? I'd go to a jam, and you're standing on the side of the circle, and I'd be standing on the side of the circle watching somebody go out, but I'm pre-planning everything that I'm going to do before I go out.
Yeah.
Because I'm very limited. It's all moves at this point. There's no dancing, nothing.
Which is what a lot of people do today.
I think they still do that, yeah. So there you are standing, and you're thinking, okay, I'm going to do this little top rock thing, and then I'll spin down, I'll do a corkscrew down, I'll do that little move combination, I'll end with this freeze, and maybe I'll even, grab my dick when I get up or something. And then you'd go out and you'd try to do that. And maybe you'd make a mistake, so you wouldn't really pull off the freeze at the end. So you'd get back and you'd kind of be like a little disappointed, but in a way you'd also be happy because now you got that freeze for the next round.
Yeah.
So it meant you had a little bit more stock every time you messed up.
Nice.
But, man, it was terrible. It was a terrible feeling because you knew you were going to run out very quickly. And you knew when there was a guy doing something better that you had already thrown your three best things. And you had nothing for that. So, what I started doing was saying, okay, man, I'm going to go back and start right at the very beginning and try to do the things that I was originally drawn to. Top rock, style, flavor, call it whatever you want. At the time, I didn't know what that meant.
Yeah.
So when I started actually doing all that stuff, I literally threw away everything that I had, which was a very dangerous place to be. One, I had built my whole identity as a b-boy and as a graffiti artist in that way. I mean, all the way that I did everything, that's in a way who I was in that scene. And I basically at one point just said, that's all, I'm throwing all of that in the trash. I will not do any of those moves anymore. I will not do any of that kind of graffiti ever again. And just started from the very beginning again. And which really hurt because obviously if somebody called me out, I had nothing. Because I would not do that old stuff on anymore. It was like I'd be doing 6 steps on them all day because I couldn't do anything else.
Wow. Crazy. That's when you became Joey Gold.
Yeah, kind of. I mean, I met the guys at Tempe Bronx Crew, Storm in particular, not from Germany, obviously, from Style Rock Shop. This is after Tempe Bronx, but I met them and I kind of went to Storm, and having seen them throughout the years, thought they were interested in what I was interested in. Even though I had never been entirely impressed with them as a crew, as far as dancers, they always were dropping kind of factual knowledge on people in the crowds. So I kind of went to Storm, who was working at Style Rock Shop, and just said, hey, can you teach me, And he said no, and and he couldn't. He actually was very smart about it. one of my big influences in life, not just in breaking, is that what happened, instead of him saying, "Yeah, I'll show you how to do it," what we did is we just started hanging out all the time. And since we were at this hip-hop shop, style rock shop, we'd be watching breaking videos all day. So we were always around it, and we'd watch a video, and he'd say, just pick a round that you like. And I'd pick something, and then he'd pick a round that he liked. And then he'd say, what did you like about it? And I would basically have no answer. And then he would explain, he'd start talking about some Crazy Legs round, and he'd say, he'd be freeze framing. Look at this angle of this leg. Look at this leg whip right here, and look how beautiful the head turns right here at the freeze. Like how good that is.
Wow.
And so it's not like he actually showed me or started saying, "Oh, here's how you do a top rock." We just started talking about sensibilities and talking about what was cool and what wasn't. And when I went back to practices, all of a sudden those things were there to think about. That the angle of a freeze, or some little nuance in a leg whip or in a step, or where your hands were, that those things all counted now. And I just had the discipline to do them on my own, because nobody ever really said, "This is how you got to do it." Yeah. I just threw everything else I had away and started from the very beginning. And very slowly, just by being immersed by good philosophy, I got better. And basically, as I got better, I needed to change who I was, because I didn't feel like that old person anymore. I love the idea in hip-hop that you pick your own name.
Yeah.
Because you're born with some name that you had nothing to do with. You end up, your name is Tim, you're Tim. You didn't choose that. It's just what you got to deal with. But in hip-hop, you get to pick who you are, and you pick that based on, kind of how you feel about certain names and what they represent and how they feel. I always liked that, and I basically didn't feel like Deem anymore. That felt like a chapter that I had sort of just gotten rid of. So Joey Gold was that same thing. I was trying to pick something that sounded kind of like 30s and 40s kind of mafia name, and I wanted also something that kind of sounded like late 70s, early 80s graffiti names. Like they would have all these, Stay High 149, or, those kinds of names, and especially guys that would use their own name and their street name. You'd get a guy who'd be like, Joe 177, because he was Joe and he lived on 177th Street, and I kind of liked that.
Yeah.
So Joey Gold, Joey obviously is my real name, and Gold actually just kind of worked well, but it also sounded a little bit like a jewel thief and a little bit like number one, So I liked the combination. I threw it out at a few people who I respect their opinions. They thought it was cool. So that's where it came from.
Wow.
And that was the beginning of the whole change, obviously. The name change being the, if you will, the clearest line of demarcation between the old and the new.
Well, why do you, when we watch Joey Gold get down, it's apparent that his dancing focuses on dancing, just dancing. You can correct me if I'm wrong. But why do you dance the way you do?
Well, not in battles. Like I said, in contests, I always, I don't know, I get competitive or something, and I end up trying to win, and so I do it a lot less.
Yeah.
When I first made all those changes, there was a little bit of talk about dance, but we didn't really even know what we meant by that. We were hearing it kind of echoed by Wiggles and those people, and then we met the Boogaloos, and when we met the Electric Boogaloos, basically my whole world changed, because I saw some dancers who really danced. They didn't pre-program anything on the side of the circle. They went out to whatever song they liked, and they could do it all night long, every night, and really, that was my major influence as a dancer. It's all of a sudden, it was the idea of thinking about moves just became pointless in a way. It just totally changed me.
What year was this?
99, 2000, I'd guess. Which, coincidentally, I also started meeting some of the people who I was really, outside of the local scene. Locally, the people I really gravitated towards were a guy named Rob Goblin, who I really, to this day, am influenced by, who really, aesthetically, as a b-boy, really did a lot of what I thought was cool. But you know, Kenny and Legs and those kinds of people, I really liked what they were doing. And so the same years that I met, like 99, 2000, I met you know, Skeeter Rabbit and Pop and Pete. I met Wiggles and Mr. Freeze and Ken Swift, and all, you know, I just started meeting all kinds of people who I had interest in, and got to have conversations with them and talk to them. You know, maybe like a year later or something like that. I was meeting some really interesting people, Track 2, and you know, it was pretty fun. And obviously, I just happened to be right place, right time, and my mentality had just changed, so it was like almost like everything worked out perfectly.
So you basically saw the Electric Boogaloos and saw what they were about. Because most people would say, you know, they got influenced by b-boys, but these were poppers. And you saw them get down, and you thought they were the real deal, and you wanted to apply that to your breaking? Or just dancing in general, or what?
They came to some hip hop thing thrown by a radio station there, Power 92.3, I think, and they had this like sort of hip hop summit kind of thing, you know, where they had panels and all kinds of stuff. And I had heard the name Skeeter Rabbit and Pop and Pete, you know, just like you hear Boogaloo Shrimp or something. I had heard those names for years, but never, you know, Pop and Pete especially, you had heard. I didn't know who he was or what he did, and they did a little like a talk, and in the talk, Skeeter Rabbit was saying some stuff that I was like really blown away by. And let me mention this also. At the time, I had no interest in popping or locking. I was not interested in New York boogie boy style in the slightest. When they would go out in circles, you know, we'd be having a good breaking circle, and then some popper would go out, and I always felt like it ruined the circle. I was not interested in it. And so when, you know, you had these guys that were popping, and he was up there and he was saying stuff that was, you know, really, really clear, concise, made a lot of sense, had some history to it. Not like some guy who's just throwing out their own kind of set of beliefs. Really, you know, explaining things easily. And then at the very end of it, some guy just did a human beatbox, and everybody that was up on the panel kind of did something. And Skeet went out, and it was like, just blew my mind. It was so bad.
Wow.
And like I said, I was not interested in popping, but when I saw that, I was like, man, this is so bad. And so I, you know, had a good conversation with him. And like I said, there's no way to, you meet somebody like Skeet or Pete, and they tell you something, and you see it. You can't just go do that tomorrow. You know, there's no way to just like go back to practicing tomorrow and start dancing like that. It's not possible. It takes a whole kind of, first of all, a completely different way of thinking about breaking, because you cannot practice moves the old way. You have to, basically it all becomes about listening to the music and trying to do something. You realize midway that you have to have some stock, though, because the dances they don't function the same way.
Yeah.
You're not standing on two legs and just moving your arms around.
Yeah.
There's a whole set of momentum and balance, and so then you needed moves again. So then you know what I mean? Man, it was very tough. But the whole time, for me, what it's about is a change in the sensibilities. All of a sudden, you practiced with a different mentality. And maybe you didn't even practice. I mean, for me, I really kind of stopped practicing in the old sense and just started going to the corner of Mill, in which, you know, I never did stuff like just stood on one hand and practiced that for a while, because you were out in public, so you just danced all night long. But it wasn't a competition either, so you could just sort of do really simple things, do a little six-step and kind of do a little move, and just try to do everything to the music. Just try to listen to the music.
Could you describe what Mill is to people that don't know?
Mill Avenue is in Tempe, and it's kind of like, that's where Arizona State University is, so it's kind of a college town, a lot of young people, and Mill is kind of like it's the one street where there are like all kinds of bars and clubs and restaurants that stay open late at night. So every, say, Friday night, Saturday, and maybe sometimes Sunday, people would just sort of hang out there. They'd be at the bar. It'd be, you know, just one street crowded with people. And on one corner, on 6th and Mill, Tempe Bronx had been going there for years, just hanging out with a boombox and, you know, having MC circles and dancing on the street corner there. And when I was getting into it, Tempe Bronx kind of stopped, but Rob Goblin kept going. So Rob was breaking there like every Saturday, and I would go and you know, and just watch him and be interested, and every once in a while go out with him. And then there was a certain point where that kind of passed on to me, and Rob sort of stopped dancing, and I took over Mill, and I was there every Saturday, and that became my sort of practice spot and my place to do things.